Hi every wonderful person watching this video. I am frozenflygone. I've interacted with a lot of you at GDQ, but also in your server and around Twitch. Thank you for watching my submission. I'm going to be submitting Celeste Chapter 9 titled Farewell. I believe that this chapter and this game are really suited to the marathon because the protagonist of this game, Madeline, specifically in this chapter, is heavily coded to be trans. Additionally, the head developer of the game, Matt, they came out as non-binary after the game came out and said that the development of this game and its themes was really central to their identity formation, and it's really special to their life. In addition, the music composer, Lena Rain, is a trans woman, incredibly successful composer, and all-around awesome human. And then there are other themes in Celeste that really relate to the queer experience, talking about isolation, Farewell specifically talking about overcoming grief, and just the struggle that a lot of queer people find within themselves, which is encapsulated in the battling character, who we will also still see in the chapter. So with that, I want to thank you for watching my video, and none of the story of Chapter 9 is going to be featured, as I will be skipping all of the cutscenes, so there will not be any spoiler content in this video whatsoever. So with that, let's start the run. So in Farewell, the first half does not require any speed tech that is found in the chapters, but I will be using that to go quickly through the first half of this chapter. The majority of the speed tech used in this chapter consists of chaining, dashes, and jumps in a way to maintain your momentum. There's no momentum cap in Celeste, so as long as you are continuing the momentum, she will continue to go fast. And so you see in that room, I was chaining called wave dashes and hyper dashes are two ways to keep your momentum going quickly. You input a downward right or downward left, and then a downward right or downward left dash, and then a jump. That allows you to dash very quickly on the ground. Hyper dashes are done from the ground, and wave dashes are done from the air. And if you delay the dash long enough, you're able to regain your dash, and that allows speedrunners to traverse horizontally ways that you typically would not be able to do without tech. There is the double dash crystal that we saw on the previous screen, has the two crystals above each other. That allows you to get both of your dashes back. Madeline is not with us in this chapter, which is why we only have the one dash as seen by the red hair. But if you pick up the double dash crystal, she'll get the pink hair and be able to do two dashes. This fish is a new obstacle introduced into Farewell. You are able to bounce on them to jump and kind of get your dash back. You also can go into the arc that you see outside of the fish, and they will spit you out in the other direction. In addition to jumping on their head to get their dash back, you can move them to different places, and that is the crux of a lot of the puzzles in this beginning area, which is titled Singular. So this section was really just figuring out how the fish work. Every piece of texture you see in the background is going to kill you. So you have the spikes, you have the electricity, especially in this room you see with the electricity. Anytime you touch that, you're going to restart at the beginning of the room, as you can see there. By clicking the confirm button when you die, you are able to skip the death animation and retry a lot faster. So that's something that speedrunners do a lot to go faster. So introduced in this room is another new friend, the jellyfish. And so you carry the jellyfish similarly to how you carry Theo in the Mirror Temple. You hold the spacebar, or whatever your grab button is. And so the jellyfish are really, really wonderful, and they do a lot of different things. They slow your fall if you're holding onto one of them, and you also can hyper dash or wave dash into them and kind of carry them along with you. So this becomes moving into a power source, one of the bigger skips in the game. Casually, you are meant to find 5 different keys within the outskirts of this room to unlock all of the different key doors you see and take a bubble straight up. Instead, we are going to use the jellyfish that we brought from the previous room to get to the power source early, like you just saw. That takes a very precise jump and dash to get through those spikes without dying. If you die there, you have to find a jellyfish in this room, which is very difficult to do. So that is part 1 of the keys skip. You have to now take this jellyfish up and to the right and throw that into the crevice, take the bubble, and dash up. So as you can see, I was a little early entering the bubble. Luckily, once you've hit the power source, there's another jellyfish waiting for you down below. So it's a pretty easy backup. You still have to get the double dash crystal. You will see why in a second. So it's all good. We take the jellyfish back. And so you can see the jellyfish allows you to jump a little farther and you float a little lower. And we call this the jellyvator. You take the jellyfish, drop it, dash into it, and you can rise up really high vertically. And so that was the second part of the keys skip. Getting a second try is pretty alright. And as you can see, the developers input this room here specifically for the keys skip. So basically every skip in this level and most of the time in the standard game was intended by the developers. We are now moving into the next section, and this has the beautiful string quartet that I love, and a little bit of a brighter aesthetic. This section is actually one of my most difficult. This is a new strat that I learned. You can take this jellyfish, totally ignore the left spring, squeeze on through those little spikes. You also, if you have your timing good enough, you can just take the jellyfish all the way up, but I missed it there. This room requires a lot of neutral jumps, which means jumping away from the wall without holding any direction to make sure you're not getting hit by any of the spikes. We have some more jellyfish movement here, being sure to dropping the jellyfish, dashing into it to pick it up again, and using it to fly over the spikes. The jellyfish movement is really critically important here, and you use it throughout the level. And this is an infamous skip called door skip that I do not know how to do consistently yet. You can just slide on through the first door. You also can skip the second and third doors, but it doesn't save any time. So we don't really go for those door skips, but door skip is a big meme in the Celeste community. As you can see, jumping on the fish, you gotta move him downward twice, jump on the spring, and this room is notoriously difficult for me. And you activate the little traffic block, hit the spring, move to the right side. That one took me a while to figure out casually. The block you see at the bottom moves every time you dash, and so you have to wait for the jellyfish to despawn and then go past him to have him launch you. This is one of my favorite rooms. You just take the jellyfish, hyperdash into him, fly across the room, and use him to... We don't need floors. We can just keep flying around. And those coins you saw, you have to get all of the coins in a room and able to move that last obstacle. You'll see some of the coin rooms later. That arrow block just keeps on moving the second you activate it, so you have to stay caught up with the arrow block. This is the last room of this section. You again have to stay on the arrow block. It will carry the jellyfish for you. We get the double dash crystal, grab the jellyfish, and move along on our way. Oh, it's the end of the level. We got the heart. As we found out, that is a fake heart. We are now about a little less than halfway through the level. I probably was at, 3 or 4 hours into this level in my casual play. 6 minutes is pretty good here. This is called the barrier skip here. You typically have to get all of those hearts to be able to unlock the door, but we are able to get by it with a dash jump and then a wave dash there. This is the wave dash tutorial. So from this point forward, speed tech is required in the level. And so the developers were nice to put a little wave dash tutorial within the level if you go in the little internet cafe you saw at the beginning. And it tests your ability to do the wave dashes before it throws you into this section. So now we are in Event Horizon, which is fondly known as the breaking news section due to the breaking news sounding music. And this is where we see a lot of speed tech come in, as it is relevant and required to the puzzle. There are 2 ways to do this room. One way includes wall bouncing, which is when you dash upwards up into a wall and jump off of it. That's also called a vertical hyper. I took that room the right side of the way, where you just use neutral jumps. This block here is called a Kevin block because the developer for the sound mixer, Kevin, just stuck his head underwater and went blah, 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 blah. So we call those Kevin. These traffic blocks, you had to hyperdash off of them, grab them, activate them, so on and so on. This room is really fun because we don't have to use the block all the way, you can just use some careful jumping and dashing to get around it. This room requires a wave dash into a few wall bounces, which can be pretty precise to get up to that key to move the block to the next room. This room is one of my most infinitely despised rooms. I got it on the first try, luckily. You can fast activate the bubbles by hitting the dash button right as you enter the bubble in the direction you want to go. So we use that to fast trigger every bubble we see. These are the dream blocks returning from Old Site. You just dash into the block, you regain your dash, and as taught to you in Old Site B, you can jump out of the dream blocks, and you must use that to get through a lot of these levels. The hard door that we saw, also, you know, the developers are trying to encourage you to do the B-side levels as they teach you how to jump out of dream blocks. They teach you how to wall bounce in some of the. That's why they only really taught you the wave dash and not those other pieces of tech, because they assume you've done those B-side levels. That cloud room that we just saw was actually inspired by some mods of Celeste, and the developers really liked it, so they put it in. Feathers are notoriously difficult for keyboard players such as myself, as you can't use all directions, and so I practice keyboard rooms a lot. This is the first area where fast falling is required, where you hold down and you fast fall through it. And then we have more feathers here chasing our bird friend. If you activate the next feather before the animation runs out, you just go straight through it instead of seeing the feather animation go again and again. So we try and do that. Alright, moving into Determination, one of the toughest parts of Farewell. And as you can see, this feather is going to give me a lot of trouble as usual, because you have to be very efficient getting to those double dash crystals, otherwise you can get spiked, like I just did there. What happened there was I was trying to do a wave dash and I jumped a little late, and so I didn't get the dash momentum. All the double dash crystals, these big blocks are the same as the other moving blocks in that they dash, but they go away from you as you dash. And so you have to be careful to be dashing so they don't spike you. This room is one of my least favorites. Just very hard to string it all together sometimes. Now this is the Ascending Spring room, a really infamously difficult room, I would say, for everyone's first play. It becomes really, really fun after you kind of figure out the timing to it. You only can step on the top of that spring one time, and you have to figure out where that one time is. Here we are back to fast activating bubbles. The wind kind of changes the trajectory of the bubbles. They usually are just the cardinal directions, and now they're this weird slanty time, so kind of gotta figure out how that works. I think the aesthetic of this room is absolutely beautiful. I have a lot of time to save in this section, kind of dying a few times in a lot of these rooms, and so I'm gonna really be working on this section to improve some time. Here we just did a little dash jump to get that coin. Get some precise dashing around there. I purposely retry in this room as I am very bad at the entry cycle. Everything on Celeste has an entry cycle and a death cycle, so I just feel more comfortable with the death cycle, so I retry there to get on it. This star room is really fun. I take the slower path over to the left as there is a lot more room. I feel more consistent on it. The right path is intended for speedrunners and is much more precise. There's a really, really fun strat here. I failed the second part of it, but you can see the first part is you fly off of this and hit the spring. I missed the spring, but you can see how that was intended to work. So here, again, we have no floor. You have to kind of just be patient and get your dashes right and precisely use the feathers to get around these spikes. I was happy to get that first try. This room confused a lot of people in the casual play because you see these blocks in core, and in core you don't get your dash back every time you touch an object. So I remember sitting at the bottom of here just being like, I'm never getting up. I don't understand how to ascend this. But once you figure out you have your dash, it's not too terrible. It's still terrible, but it's not too terrible. We have strong wind here coming from Ridge. And this is the very difficult spring room. It's very hard to line up with the wind pushing you and the up dashes. I was very, very, very happy to get it first try. It almost made this determination good for me. Here you have to wall bounce up. You can see on the right side of those platforms is ice, which you cannot grab onto and climb. So you have to wall bounce up it, which can be very difficult as you have to line up the wall bounces very precisely. So I wall bounce here, go through the spikes, and you have to do 2 wall bounces here. I jump off here and take the checkpoint. I'm not very confident with going straight down because I don't want to do that room again. Here we have another Kevin block section. Grabbing that double dash crystal so I can activate the Kevin block and dash to this feather. We have to grab the other feather and get that dash crystal so I can land back onto the Kevin block. You can grab that double dash crystal. I don't like to. I just feel more comfortable dashing there, getting my dash back, and getting up there that way. This room is one of my least favorite rooms in the entire game, probably, just because feathers are hard and the stars are really mean. So you kind of want to learn a cycle that works for you to avoid all of these stars. This spring section with the stars is also very difficult. Unfortunately died right there. And there are also more developer shortcuts you can see in this little section, but I like to take the long way because I am not that comfy. So now dashing at the right time to get around these stars. Get into another feather. And if you touch battle in here and ram into the stars, you will die, so you have to be very precise with your timing there. Moving into Stubbornness, which is, I think, a very unique and a cool chapter, but a very infuriating chapter to speedrun, because it is all so heavily cycle-based. This is kind of reminiscent of the cassette rooms that are seen to unlock the B-sides and also in the B-sides. So you have to be very careful about, either visually or auditorily keeping up with how the cycles work. And you can see in this first room, they kind of tell you, oh, the cycle is going to go in this way from these colors. It's got up there. This spring room is very, very cool. There's 2 different ways you can do it. But we always take that pink spring at the end to help us get over there. This really, really cool part of the Stubbornness levels that are utilized is that when you're in the middle of one of these platforms, and if it changes to blue, say if I'm in the middle of that blue platform and it changes to blue, it will not, kill me, it will just stay deactivated. And so that is something that we use to skip sections. You can just kind of hang out in the block itself while it's activating it and hang out there. This also becomes a puzzle of, timing your dashes correctly, timing your jumps correctly to make sure that you're in the right space. As you can see here, I'm inside of that pink block, and it doesn't kill me. I can stay there. And so I use that to just take those all the way. We have this cool bubble puzzle. There's a much faster strat that doesn't rely on waiting here, but I feel very comfortable with the path I've taken, except I went a little early there and got spiked. That's alright. It's a pretty fast room. Alright, getting on out of here. This is the last room of Stubbornness, and this room is really slow in terms of the music, and that makes it very, very difficult. Alright, and so we kind of use that, and now we are moving on to the next checkpoint, Reconciliation, which is personally my favorite checkpoint. You have our bird friend who assists us, and also Madeline who assists us, which is great. And so we have the puzzles with both of them helping us through the level. We have the return of our wonderful jelly friend. And so this becomes this power source is similar to the one we saw in the power source checkpoint. You will have to hit it twice, and on the second hit you do get your dash back, but not the first hit. So that becomes another part of the puzzle that you have to solve. And I think the wonderful thing here is that you do not have to use any of the Madeline or the bird assists. And if you do need to use a lot of them, but if you skip one, the developers just have them move on without you, which is really nice. You're never going to get punished for skipping a Madeline or bird section. You can see I just grabbed the thing, didn't use Madeline down there. This is a cool, awesome developer shortcut I use, dashing through there. Just learned that recently. So we see we grab Madeline, dash into the bird, hit the power source once, hit the power source twice, and move on. That is a really fun chain with the 2 wave dashes into that room. Oh, and I forgot to mention, through any screen transition, you always get your dash back, so you can use that to gain a lot of things. The moving electricity cycle. Here I do a wave dash into a hyper dash to move very quickly downward there. Grab the power source, get the dash crystal. We have the return of our fish friends. This is a short little skip. I jump on him instead of using him, and I don't have to use that left spring. There are 2 ways to go through this room. I just like to use the feather, and I like to use the fish. I dashed a little early there. Here again, we have the dream blocks that you have to jump out of. You also can hyperdash out of dream blocks, but the timing is pretty precise, and I haven't really learned how to be consistent with that yet. This is my absolute favorite section, not only because I think it's very fluid in the movement with the Madeline and the bird and the jellyfish, but the music is just absolutely incredible. Oh, and the white barriers, if I didn't explain them before, the jellyfish cannot go through the white barriers, but you can, and you can't go through the electricity, but the jellyfish can. That is a big part of a lot of the jelly puzzles, is dealing with those barriers and how to get around them. We see the return of the platforms that move every time you dash. This section is also really exciting to get to because you're almost there. You're almost there. And especially during this run, I was very excited to see that I was under 20 minutes at this point. It was very, very good for me. I think this room is really, really fun, keeping up with the springs on the moving platforms, juggling Madeline essentially in the air. This is an incredibly fun room, just wave dashing through it all smoothly, because all those platforms fall. You can't sit on them, so you kind of gotta be fast and just trust yourself through them. Get that last wave dash there. I know that scared me the first time I went through that room. This feather room, I demo dash through all of those gaps. Demo dash is a button combination where you are crouching and dashing at the same time. I have a demo dash key. The community has determined demo dash keys are fine for everyone to use as they're easy to make. I dash there to zoom over to baddie. Here, I have to take the spring, wall bounce into the jelly, throw the jelly through that tiny little hole, wall bounce into the jelly again. It's a really fun room too. Really, really tough to get at first if you're not that comfortable with wall bouncing. I would say speedrunners had a really, really big advantage in playing this chapter, as the second half of it relied on speed tech, but I know just takes practice, as always. This is the final room, titled Farewell. Has the most banging music of all time. This room takes me on average about 2 minutes, which is longer than the time it takes for me to complete the first level, Forsaken City, and also for many speedrunners to complete the second level, Old Site. It's kind of crazy that one room is longer than the first 2 levels of the base game. And Matt apologized for this room when the game came out, and you'll see why at the end. So you have the binoculars that allow you to see the first half of this room, and it's just semi-standard jellyfish puzzles. They really make you understand the jellyfish mechanics well. This part is very difficult. You have to sneak down through here, throw the jellyfish, get up to the spring, grab the jellyfish again. They give you that crystal there in case you don't have enough altitude. And now, this is the part you can't see with the binoculars. One of the coolest parts of the game. You take this jellyfish, you now can move it in all cardinal directions as the wind is going upwards. And now it's like a balloon. You have to avoid these stars, stay within the confines of the electricity, and get to the end. This room alone took me about 2 to 3 hours of my 10-hour playthrough. Gotta avoid the fish. The speed strats here are to hold up through that section. I do it a little bit, but I'm also very afraid and nervous at this point because dying on this room costs minutes. Grab the double dash crystal. Use the fish here. This feather is my last choke point of this room. Typically, if I get through this feather part, I'm decently home free. Feathers are very difficult for me. Dash into these springs, get to this platform, and then we have this last jelly juggling section, which is actually incredibly fun. So every single time you pass the white barrier, you drop a jelly, gotta grab a new jelly. It's really fun to chain it all together. And once you get to this power source, the level is not over. I've seen a few people die at this section, it's really unfortunate. But the baddie and the bird will help you get there, as long as you do the feather straight up, and you take this last dash. That is time. I was really proud of my run here. Sorry this was moving really fast. I'm sure I didn't explain every single room, but I'm hoping to have Uni as my commentator, and she is an incredibly talented caster and commentator for this game, and will explain everything probably way better than I did. So I'll be skipping all of these cutscenes, so we don't have any story spoilers here. But I'm really proud of this run. I think it's a wonderful showcase, as it's not shown very often. NA% is the really predominant category here. And thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it.